one thing that's really good about having an entitled generation is they feel entitled to get paid for what they love doing. There's many generations where what they're good at and what they love are two different things. I mean, Garrett and I started teaching because what we were getting paid for wasn't necessarily just what we loved doing. It just happened to be also what we were good at.
But I feel like both of you were teaching, not out of need to teach, but
no,
we love to do it. I mean, you guys don't even need you don't even get paid for it. You just love it.
Well, we get paid, but just let's see. We get paid, but
it's like this. Don't you do this thing, fight on?
Yeah, I will say that we love what we do. Like we started teaching a class because we wished this class was taught when we were in college. Wow. And there was just like, we were in the enterprise and there were all these new entrants into the workforce. They didn't know how to follow their dreams. They didn't know how to change their world. They couldn't change other people's world. They couldn't ask for raises. They couldn't communicate upwards or across. They didn't know how to move people. That was like their whole thing. Like they weren't taught how to move people. And when the concept came up, it was like yucky. And then that was the origin. It was like, listen, you can't change your world or anybody else's world if you don't know how to move people. And it's not yucky. And engineers need to understand that selling their ideas or somebody else's ideas isn't like a nasty, smarmy thing. That's like the origination of the
Do you guys teach? Because like one of the companies we have a stark difference between the engineering. We have a lot of engineers that are building product, and then the other side of things, which are community and the sales, right? And I feel like they're two completely different human bases that we're talking to. And I just found in the last 6 months, it's just fascinating to me. But
well, our class is called Sales Mindset for Entrepreneurs. We're not teaching the typical sales stuff like, here's how you overcome objections and here's how you ask for the close and all that. Like you can learn that stuff anywhere. And those foundational things are important for if you're going to be a quote unquote salesperson. But ours is all about the mindset of selling. How do you show up as your authentic self and not as the stereotypical salesperson? And, we're talking to
I feel like all lawyers should be taking these classes.
When I think of sales, I think of Alec Baldwin and
right, and that's the problem. And that's why we wrote our book, and that's why we teach our class.
That's what I think of sales.
Let me ask you a question. Who, like when you think of the word salesperson, like what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Oh, I know what comes to my mind.
First thing comes to mind, car salesman.
What were you going to say?
A guy in a briefcase and a suit and tie coming to your front door selling carpets or vacuums.
Exactly. Yucky, smarmy. Okay, now let's put that to the side.
That's of a salesman. I mean, that's what I think.
Right.
Second question. Who is the greatest salesperson you know?
Oh.
Donald Trump.
The salesperson you know. Who's the greatest salesperson?
He's a good salesman.
That I know? Okay, yeah, I know some people that can sell.
Who? Who's the greatest salesperson you know?
My friend David Danishgar. He's a great salesman.
Good salesman.
You respect him?
Yeah.
Admire him?
Yeah.
Revere?
Yeah.
Like that's why we teach the class. There's this huge disconnect between who we think salespeople are and who the greatest salespeople on the planet. Like we ask that question to tens of thousands of people. Top two answers are Martin Luther King Jr. and Steve Jobs. Yet everybody says yucky, smarmy, manipulative, pushy, and it's like no. Like the greatest salespeople on the planet are the antithesis of who you think they are, and they typically don't have sales in their title.
No.
And right? I think it's important to point out. I mean, we're talking to a bunch of lawyers here, ostensibly, that are listening to this and watching this. It's like, talk about two stereotyped professions. Salespeople and the stereotype that you're talking about, and lawyers and the stereotype that you all know about. But I would wager...
Bob's a great salesman, but I mean, he's a lawyer, so I don't really consider him a salesman.
I do think, but I'm conscious of it because I had this discussion with these two when they were writing their book, and they asked me some questions. I'm actually proud to be in sales. I've been in sales since I was a kid because that's what you had to do to survive.
And lawyers are selling all day, every day, whether it's selling to a jury to try to get a verdict, whether it's selling to employees to join the firm. You're selling all day long in different ways.
And we teach lawyers all the time, and they get too lost in their mantra, what they're talking about. It's like if you're selling to a jury, you have 12, 9 sometimes folks that is your audience, and you're selling them. And you better find out what they like. So you're going for a pitch, right? Or you're going into you have to research those people as much as you can to close them, and that's all that matters. But people lose sight of that.
Your part in the book, in my opinion, one of the most magical parts in the book because it's on the vulnerability concept of why do certain people show pieces of themselves that most of us are trained to hide. And you gave this really good example, and we heard this example from everyone, at some point when we were interviewing them, that at one point or another, you end up talking to yourself out loud in front of people. And remember, you gave this story of you were in the courtroom, the judge asked you to repeat yourself, you looked up at the ceiling, and you were like, what did I just say?
Yeah.
And you look back at the judge, you look at the jury, you were like, I have no idea. The jury erupts laughing.
Love
like
it.
that idea that people see themselves in you the minute they realize you're imperfect.
Yeah.
But the important part of that story is that you weren't doing that as a tactic to manipulate the jury or the judge. You just felt comfortable enough being yourself in front of that room to go, oh shit, I don't remember what I was saying, and kind of fess to that. Because everybody in a courtroom is kind of a little nervous and uptight and you know, not sure what's going on. And that just kind of relieves a pressure because you were authentic enough to sell without selling, without using a tactic.
But people will root for folks that are like them, and you walk into a courtroom and they're like, this person's an uptight, stuffy lawyer.
Exactly.
You can break that mold. Now I do in jury selection because I'm conscious of it.
Yeah.
Find ways to make people laugh or be engaging or say stuff. It's a little different. But I remember that moment when I first did that, when the jury laughed. Now it was a litmus test for me now, and I'm like, oh, I got him.
Well, you should know we bring it up many keynotes throughout. I mean, we do a lot of keynotes every year, and we talk about you and that story as the example.
Ray Lewis, apparently.
You're both there.
Who else did you guys interview? You guys interviewed a lot of people.
I was going to say, you know, the advice that you gave us was the same advice that Snoop Dogg gave us. When we were like, you know, what would you tell people is like the secret sauce of like being a great seller? And it had something to do with like being the best version of yourself.
He's a master doing you.
That's what Snoop said. They were like, hey, why does everyone keep saying you're a great salesperson? And he was like, master doing you, everything else will work itself out. And as weird as the
guy, he ran a 200 meter the other day for no reason. Did you see
horrible? It was an unattractive. I love Snoop. Snoop knows
I can't believe he ran that far as much as weed as he smokes.
Can I tell you, that's the imperfection you're talking about. Like the sad truth is, people like people. People like buying from people.
We could do another pour because I'm thirsty, Mark.
Yeah, I'm ready. People like
This was my second pour.